there at the Cotton Bowl will be the winners of Texas and Arizona State, and this next game, Oregon, Ohio State, banger of a Rose Bowl matchup, a traditional Rose Bowl matchup, even as it features two teams from the Big Ten. Man, it's kind of a monster. It's a little heavy. Danny, where do we start with this one?
I tell you, this one, so if it plays out the exact same last time, I love it. Like this one, I think has the potential to be the best game of the weekend, right? It's
100
teams at their best.
Yes.
I think the question is, because Oregon has been the most consistent team the entire season. It's like, all right, what adjustments can you make if you're Ohio State? One, clearly, I want to see the version that played against Tennessee, which was aggressive. They opened it up somewhat. They let Will Howard throw the football down the field. They were able to take advantage of it. I think this defense will be a bigger challenge. I want to see how they handle, again, this is a question for Ryan Day. The thing that surprised me the first time around in Eugene was without Jordan Birch, I think we were all kind of like, man, Oregon did a pretty good job. Their defensive line against Ohio State's offensive line. Like that to me is one place they have got to be better if they want to win this football game. Like they've got to handle Birch and Mateo Uyunglele and the rest of the guys along that front seven. Just doing a better job establishing themselves and not having negative plays throughout the game.
I like that.
And somebody has to figure out how to make Dylan Gabriel uncomfortable.
I think we're going to see another tennis match.
Yeah.
I think it's going to look a lot like the first game. I think that just based on what I have seen from Oregon in these games, like going to the Big Ten championship, what was it, 45-37? The first game between these two both got to the 40s, even going to the Boise State game. Like let me see, I got it in my
It was mid-30s, right?
Yeah.
32-31, 33-32.
Yeah, because like Oregon is the only team in the playoff who's played three other playoff teams that are still alive right now. And on the season, like their defense, their success rate is, let's see, blah, 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 blah. They rank ninth nationally in oh wait, I'm looking at the wrong thing. I'm sorry, guys, got my notes mixed up here. They're allowing 1.56 points per possession. That ranks 19th. Their success rate is 62.6%. That ranks 15th. But in their three games against Boise, Ohio State, and Penn State, it jumps to 2.68 points per drive and a success rate of 55.8. So like, I mean, play better teams, play worse defense. But like there is a significant drop off from this defense against better offenses like these three teams. And I think we're going to see something like that in this game still, because Oregon won the regular season meeting, but let's not forget, like it literally came down to Will Howard losing track of time, or else Ohio State ends up with the win there. And I think if you look at how Ohio State played last week, that looked like the Ohio State kind of flying death machine that when they're operating at full capacity is really difficult to beat. The offensive line has been improving as they've gotten, they've been dealing with the injuries, but the more they play together, the better they start to look, although this will be a very tough test. But Tennessee's defensive line is really good too. So it's not like they weren't tested last week. So it's a really interesting spot. But at the same time, offensively, we saw that Oregon knows how to exploit Ohio State's defense, and their offensive line in that game did a good job against Ohio State's defensive line, at least holding off the pressure. And that is one of those things with Ohio State's defensive front. They're kind of schizo. Like some weeks they look great, and some weeks they're a completely different person. They're just really not getting that kind of pressure. And when they don't, it exposes some of the flaws that they might, well, not flaws, but it's harder for a secondary to cover when they're not getting home and they've got to cover for longer. And we've seen Oregon's got guys in the passing game who can beat you deep, because they did it to Ohio State repeatedly in that first game. Dylan Gabriel, as the season has gone on, has been better and better, and he's really taken command of that offense, and it's just humming. So I look at this matchup, and we've talked about it. You get these kind of games between these elite programs over the last few years, and typically what you see are high-scoring affairs because the defenses just have no prayer once they face offenses that are operating like this with receivers like this and quarterbacks and running backs and blah, blah, blah. So I think this game will be another banger. I think it will look like the first game, and barring a bunch of turnovers from one side, which we don't really see from either one of these teams, I don't think it's going to be close. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter. It could be one of those whoever has the ball last kind of situations.
Let's go.
I hope it does. I'm not convinced that Ohio State can duplicate what it did on offense against Tennessee when it runs up against Oregon. I think they got some really favorable looks, got the pitches they want to hit and hit those out of the ballpark. But like, you don't get that every single game. And I guarantee you that Oregon won't give them the exact same type response to some of the looks that they showed. Like, I think Ohio State did have to tip their hand a little bit against Tennessee, and I think that is to Oregon's advantage here. Now, it doesn't mean that Chip Kelly can't come up with different stuff. In fact, I'm pretty sure that he will, but I don't know about this Ohio State offensive line. Like, they handled Tennessee pretty well. They had Tennessee very off balance, and they had them like very positive game script in their favor. But like some of the run game stuff was just okay. And I think that Oregon is a better defense than Tennessee is, personally. I just think Tennessee's played a bunch of really crappy quarterbacks for the most part this year. So I like Oregon here. I think that their defensive line can give Ohio State some problems. And if I'm Oregon, I'm not allowing Jeremiah Smith and Puka to get over the top on me. I want to see if Howard can be a little more consistent with that. Maybe he can, right? But I don't know that he can. I think Oregon can block Ohio State. They did the first time around. I mean, those two tackles for the Ducks are, I think, not like way better, but I think we would take them 1-2 over anybody on Tennessee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I do think it's like, like sometimes Sawyer and sometimes JTT, they show up and sometimes they don't. That's true. Like, those guys don't always, play amazing. There is the other aspect of like who they're playing against, and that seems to matter quite a bit as well. I think Oregon can block these guys. So I like Oregon.
Do you think there's a rest? How do you break up rest rust?
I haven't thought about it a whole lot, to be honest, but I do think what I just said about the having to show your hand. I mean, that Tennessee spread was a touchdown. Like, you had to kind of not empty the clip, but you had to at least like open it up with a couple new bullets, right?
Or just go back to the ones that you should have been using before.
That's fair. That's fair.
Like highlighting Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Ibuka. Like, that's something that they just chose not to do, and then they chose to do it. I think Oregon, to your point, defensively will be set up there. I would not be surprised if the layoff does end up impacting some of the game. I just don't think that. I think Oregon's too good to have it impact more than just like the opening frames. I don't know how else to say it. Just like those first stretches of like each team, trying to get a haymaker in. Like, Ohio State might come in and might be running really hot. You've got to think they are surging with confidence. And in a similar way to how, remember Danny Cardale told us it was his first time back in Indianapolis, like since the 59-0 game that he was the quarterback of. And I was joking. It's like, we should just stand near Cardale, kind of pick up some of that glow up, right there. But Ohio State came in on fire off of that performance. And I think that was a huge difference than what Alabama brought to its semifinal matchup, where the Buckeyes just had kind of had even long layoff there and an equal layoff. I understand, but that's something where I think Ohio State comes out of the Tennessee game, not necessarily with any schematic advantages, but yeah, with a little bit of a confidence advantage and a rhythm advantage that they might be able to have against Oregon. Oregon's too good. I think Dan Lanning is too good of a coach to allow that to slip for too long, especially because Oregon has one of the best first half offenses in the country. They've got one of the best second quarters offenses in the country. They do a great job of being able to maximize possessions before they go into the locker room. They play the book 100% well, but I would not be surprised if Ohio State starts fast if there is an impact of rest rust.
I don't think rest rust is a real thing.
Ooh.
I think it's just a hindsight debate.
Yeah, I agree. No, I think there's something to momentum coming in, but it does sometimes it affects certain teams differently. I don't know if it's going to affect Dan Lanning's squad. Like last year, would they have a month off before now again, the opponent was different, but their bowl game, they came out on fire.
They decapitated Liberty. Like
now Liberty's a different opponent. It's not Ohio State, but like I think some of it may depend on the coach and the coaching style, and if teams really are treated differently, where they don't do a lot of live drills and they may get a little bit softer or not as battle tested. I have a feeling Lanning's got a pretty good physical approach to practicing. Not that they're going 11-on-11 full pads, but I just feel like he's somebody who wouldn't let the intensity level drop off in practice. And like you said, I mean, Ohio State had an extra week before the Tennessee game because they weren't playing in the Big Ten championship. They ramped it up like that.
Yeah, but
That was at
Tennessee had the
home
same
game.
rest.
Right. So it's
That's
like
the thing,
same
like-
time off.
The first round was both games were either conference championship game losers or winners against two teams you didn't play in conference championship week. So there really was no rest versus rest debate in the first round.
Okay.
But again, I don't think it's real.
I think it's real, but it can be I think it's just something else that each coaching staff has to put in place in terms of how they build their schedule. You know, like when they want to do what, in terms of just trying to make sure that with whatever time you're going to spend with your family, with whatever your other stuff you've got going on, that we just get you where you need to be physically and mentally for the start of the game. That's a coaching skill, I think, to be able to manage these long layoffs and the way that the postseason unfolds in college football when you're still dealing with 18 to 22-year-olds or 25, 26 for Dylan Gabriel. Okay.